Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Fish Den 365 here, Den Haring channel, Fish Den 365. And today is Thanksgiving. It's 25 degrees out here. It's almost noon and it's only 25 degrees. Some crazy cold weather has moved in, so you can see I have some warm weather clothes on here. But today is going to be an interesting video for you. I got some good information, so definitely want to stay tuned. I want to do a review on a fishing reel that I've been using recently and a rod also. You can look at this as a buyer's guide if you have an interest in buying for yourself or for a loved one this Christmas. This might be helpful to you, so stay tuned and we'll get started right now. How about that, huh? So earlier in the year, I purchased I was actually looking for a better outfit, a better rod and reel for frog fishing and then later toad fishing. I didn't feel that I had a stout enough rod to get the bass out of the pads because I like to fish pads. There's a lot of pad opportunities where I am. And when you get a fish in the pads, the first thing it wants to do, especially if it's a big one, is go down and just go right into those stems. And then oftentimes it'll wedge your hook into a stem and then the bass wedges off and you're left with pads. So I needed a stouter rod. And along with that, I was looking for a new reel. I was interested in a reel that had a high speed gear ratio so I can get those bass out of those pads quickly and also just be able to get the frog back quickly after I was done with the cast, just to be able to retrieve it quickly and get the next cast out. It's more efficient that way. And so I decided to buy a reel that I haven't bought before. Now, for those of you who have watched my videos before, you know that I like Shimano reels. I like Fluger reels. They're both very good. But I tried something different that was more in my price range that had the high speed. It may actually be made by Fluger, I'm not sure. It's a Bass Pro Shops Carbon Lite 2.0, and this is what the reel looks like right here. I have it on my rod right now. So it's a white reel. It's a 2.0, meaning that there was a Carbon Lite reel that was before this. I understand it had some problems. I think they re-engineered it and took those problems away. I don't know the details, but I can tell you my experience with this reel has been nothing but positive. And I bought it early summer, and as soon as I used it, I decided I liked it, and I quickly bought a second one. And that one I put on an identical rod. Here it is here with a toad. So I have a frog outfit and a toad outfit. Now, these rods can be used for heavy jig fishing. They can be used for a number of things. But I really like this Bass Pro Shops Johnny Morris Carbon Lite 2.0. You can get in a number of speed gear ratios, which is basically the speed of your retrieve. What that means is for one full turn, this one, for example, is got a gear ratio of 8.5 to 1. It's super high speed. So they actually have reels today that are actually faster than this, but this is plenty fast. So what that means is for one full rotation of this handle, the spool rotates 8.5 times. So for one rotation, you're getting more line in, and so that makes your retrieve faster and more efficient. Now, there's a time when you want that faster retrieve, and there's a time when you don't. It depends on the type of fishing that you're doing, and that's why they make this in a number of different ratios. They also make a 7.5, which is a mid-range, and I think they make a 6.8 gear ratio, 6.8 to 1. So you can decide on that. Now, this reel, the retail price is $120, but recently it went for sale for $79. For $80 you can get this reel. And when that happened, I was all over it. I wanted to get more because I like the two that I have so much. So I started trying to call Bass Pro Shops, and none of them had them. I actually called 10 different Bass Pro Shops all around the country just to see if those specific Bass Pros would ship the reel to me. They all claimed that they didn't, that I had to do the order online. And then it hit me, and this is good information for anyone out there, that they bought Cabela's, and they started to get the Bass Pro Shops brand stuff in the Cabela's. Now, I have a Cabela's that's a half an hour from me, 35 minutes it takes me to get there. I called, and they had a ton of them. Nobody realized that these same reels were at Cabela's, so I actually ordered two right away, two more of these 8.5s, and then I went there with my dad on a separate trip just to buy some fishing lures and stuff, and I bought another one, a 6.8 to 1 gear ratio. That one I'm going to be using for square bill cranking and some other techniques. So I bought 3 at that $80 price. Since then, the price has gone back up to $120. But my guess is that if you're patient and you wait, you can get another sale like that and get this reel at $80. At $80, this is probably one of the best buys you can get. So let me talk a little bit about the reel. When I first got this thing, I immediately put some backing on the reel, some monofilament line, and then I strung up some 50-pound braid because I'm using this in heavy cover. Sometimes some guys will go to 65 or even 80. For the cover that I'm fishing, I felt 50-pound braid is fine as long as I cut it off, cut the first few feet of line off every now and then and retie. Plenty of strength for me for the pads and the junk that I'm fishing. So strung it up with 50 pound, started throwing frog baits and this lure here, which is a mouse lure, and I was amazed by how smooth this reel casted. It casted extremely smooth, and it casted very far. I didn't backlash one time with this reel since I've owned it, and I've used it a lot. You can see by looking at my rod here, this is a brand new rod. It's a little dirty. I keep my hands very clean. I'm pretty careful about that. Here's the other one. This one's got some dirt on it too. That just means that I've used them a lot in the period of time that I had them. And even though I didn't have them for more than a year, they got heavy use. And neither one of them has failed at all in any way for me. They both cast like a dream. I haven't backlashed with them. And so that's why I bought more, because I was able to cast as far as any other reel that I own, including the Shimanos and the Flugers. And I actually felt that it actually casted better. And there may be a reason for that. I'll share that with you now. So the Shimanos and the Fluger reels that I have a certain type of braking system. It's called a centrifugal brake, and it's inside the spool. The Carbon Lite has that too, but it also has a magnetic brake. So it's got 2 different brake functions. And I'm not sure if that's why this thing casts so nicely or not, but for whatever reason, the thing just casts really well. So if you're thinking about a reel in that price range of $80 to $120, you may want to strongly consider this reel. The only thing I don't know about it is how reliable it'll be over time, because I haven't had it for more than a year. But I've used it hard, and it's performed the same way since I bought it. I have no reason to believe that it won't last a long time. I think the components on it are good, and like I said, it fishes real well. Just so you have an idea, generally I'll set this magnetic brake to either 0, which is no brake at all. That's what I have this one set at, or somewhere between 0 and 1.5. I've got this one set at 1.5, probably because this thing was heavier. And I always set my centrifugal brakes the same way. Let me show you that. So with this reel, the way you get to the centrifugal brake is you pull this little tab like so, and then this will open up. There we go. And so pop that off, and here are the centrifugal brakes. There's 6 of them on most of these reels. Now, how do you know if the brake is engaged or not? Okay, so there are these little white slots. Hopefully you can see that clearly enough. And if you press them in towards the spool, they'll click. You'll hear an audible click when you do this. Right now, if you look at this, you'll see that 4 are pressed in towards the spool and 2 are left out. Those 2 that are left out are actually causing the braking function. The 4 that are pushed in, it's basically the off position. It's turned off. It has no effect on the centrifugal force, braking force on the spool. So right now, I have 2 that are engaged, and the ones that are engaged are outward. And they're this one here and this one here. You always, when you do engage centrifugal brakes, you always do it opposite of one another. So if you engage one of the brakes, you have to, you should anyway, engage the other one on the opposite side. That way everything is even and your reel will perform the way it's supposed to. If you just engage one on one side or one right next to it and leave the others, you're going to have an effect that you don't want. So when you do engage these brakes, and I always do the same thing on every reel that I ever owned, I do engage 2 of them, and they're always going to be opposite of one another, and I leave the others turned off. The way you know that they're engaged is that the selector switch, I'll call it, is on the outside. It's actually towards the spool, and that's what's causing the braking mechanism as this thing is turning. It's actually called a centrifugal brake because it'll actually brake as this, it actually causes some friction, which will slow that spool down at the end of your cast, and it helps to prevent backlashes. That's the whole purpose of it. So that's my setting. Usually I have the magnetic brake set at 0 to no higher than 1.5, and I have the centrifugal brakes. I usually engage 2 of them. Now you might get to the point where you don't need to engage any of them. I like to have 2 engaged, especially when I'm throwing real long casts. If I'm pitching or flipping, I would be tempted to turn them all off because you're just doing a pitch, and you want that spool to be very loose so that you can get the most distance out of your pitch. But you don't have to. I mean, a lot of times I forget about it. I just have those 2 engaged on all my reels, and I'm able to pitch and flip just fine. But there's one other thing that allows for that, so I got to cover that while we're covering this subject. Let me put this back on, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so we got our cover back on. There's one other function, there's one other device that'll determine how loose this spool is, right? So if I engage the spool and spin it, you can see right now it's spinning, and then it'll eventually come to a stop. Well, I already told you about the centrifugal brake and the magnetic brake, but there's also the spool tension control knob. That's this guy right here. Every one of these reels has it. If I loosen that up and click on this, you'll see this will spin a lot longer now. And if I loosen it up a little more, I hardly spun it that time, it's just loosening. Now if I tighten this is a spool control knob now. It won't spin nearly as long. Tighten it up some more and we'll show you here. See, it won't even spin. So you adjust this in the end to after you adjust your brake and after you've adjusted your magnetic brake and your centrifugal brake, then you need to set this tension control knob to cast efficiently. So how do you do that? The best way to do that is to put the reel on the rod, spool it up with line, and put the bait that you're going to cast on the end of that line. And then you would have that bait hanging off your rod, maybe a foot or 2, and then you press this button. And you want to adjust this spool so that bait falls down. Maybe not too fast, because if it falls too fast, that's when you can get overruns on the spool. But that's what makes this reel so great. You can have that pretty loose, and I was still able to cast without having any backlashes. But generally what I'll do is I'll adjust that spool tension control knob so that I get one smooth flow of that bait falling to the ground. And then I'm good to go. And from there, if you put a different weight bait on, a lighter weight, you might have to loosen this tension up a little bit. If you put a heavier weighted bait on, say you go from 1/4 to 3/4, you might want to tighten this a little bit because you got more weight, so it's more likely to fall off the spool that much quicker. So that's how you adjust these bait casters. If you adjust this thing correctly, and it's easy to do, it works flawlessly, and I really like them. I'm going to be buying more. Like I told you, I just got 3 more. I got 2 more high-speed ones. They're going to be going on my pitching and flipping rods. The reason why is because when you set the hook on a fish that's at close range, oftentimes it'll swim towards you, and if a faster reel will allow me to keep up with that fish. The reason why fish get off when you're fighting them is oftentimes when you set the hook, if they swim towards you and you don't keep up with them, if you don't have tension on your rod to the end of that rod to the fish, then there's a loose line between your rod and the fish, and that's oftentimes how baits get out of their mouth. They'll shake, they'll flip, they'll jump, and the bait will be thrown. So having a higher speed reel allows you to keep up with the fish a little bit easier, and you can just get them to the boat that much more effectively and efficiently. So that's the Bass Pro Shops Carbon Lite. A great buy for a loved one or for yourself this Christmas. You may want to consider it. Now, along with that, I just bumped the camera there. Sorry about that. Along with that reel, I bought this rod, and this is the first time I bought this series of rods. It's a Dobbins rod, a Dobbins Fury. Again, this rod is in the $110 to $120 range. You could probably get it somewhere between $99 and $120, maybe $130. But for the price, it is a very well-constructed rod. I have 2 of them. I'm going to be buying more. They have a number of different sizes and classifications: medium, light, heavy. For the toads and the frogs, I decided to use heavy. So this is a heavy fast action, 7 foot long. A longer rod could be even better, but because I'm not very tall, I don't like to fish with anything more than 7'3". It just doesn't fit me well because of the height that I am. But for anyone, I'm only about 5'8", 5'7.5" or something like that. I used to be 5'9". I don't know what happened as I got older. I shrunk. But anyway, if you're taller, if you're 6 foot or in that range, you may want to go with a longer rod. But the action should be the same. You want that heavier action rod for toad and frog fishing. Something with a little bit of a faster tip, though. That tip flexes, it allows you to cast and allows you to cast more accurately. And so that's what you want for that. This rod could work for heavier jigs. It could work maybe for throwing big swim baits, so I'll be using it for those too. But eventually I'll probably buy some other rods that are maybe medium light for some other applications. As time goes on and I need to replace some of the rods that I have, I'll do that. But again, this is made by Dobyns. It's a Fury rod, and I'll put links to where I got these rods and reels. The reels are available at Bass Pro Arcabellas. The rods you can get at Tackle Warehouse, and I'm sure you can get them elsewhere, maybe even Bass Pro Shops. I'll check. I'll put the links on to the at the bottom of the video in the description. You can take a look there. And so if you have an interest, you can find out about them and buy them that way. But I think you'll like this rod. It's light, it's sensitive, and it won't break the bank. Dobyns has some higher quality rods that are quite a bit more expensive. I understand they're fantastic, but I was very happy just with the Fury rod. I thought it casted very well. The guides are on there, very straight, very good. The rod is nice and sensitive. It's very light and yet very strong. And it's a comfortable outfit to fish, especially with this reel on it. Very comfortable. I really enjoyed fishing it. And so I guess maybe we'll stop the video with showing you a few fish catches with this rod and reel. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a wonderful holiday coming up. And if you are interested in buying some gifts for a loved one, someone who likes to fish or go bass fishing, you may want to consider these, or even if you want to get it for yourself, you can't go too wrong with this rod and this reel. Hope it was a benefit to you. I can't wait to get back out on the water. I'm hoping to get out this weekend. It's supposed to warm up by Sunday, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll have a video for you there. Eventually, I think one of the videos that I'll be doing is how to clean these rods and reels and keep them in good shape at the end of the year. That's usually what I do, so I'll make a video out of that. I don't think I've ever done that. It's a simple process, but it keeps everything looking new and performing the way you want it to. So that's it for today. If you like the video, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell. That'll give you a notification when my next video comes out. Have a great holiday, and as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.